Section 2.2, Video 2. Operations on simple statements. In this video, we will cover the following objectives: represent simple statements and negations symbolically, represent compound statements symbolically using conditionals and biconditionals, and also express symbolic statements in words. A conditional. The logic operation if, then is called a conditional. The symbol of an arrow is used to represent the connective if, then in logic theory. The compound statement if P, then Q can be represented using P, arrow, Q. The P statement before the arrow is called the antecedent. The Q statement after the arrow is called the consequent or consequence. Example 6. Given statements P, Q, R, and S as shown, write the sentences using words. Part A. Part A, we have the conditional, if P, then R. Let's start out with if blank, then blank, and then fill in our blanks. The antecedent in this example is statement P, which is it is June. So we would say if it is June, then the consequent in this example is statement R, Marius did not eat breakfast. So in words, if P, then R would be if it is June, then Marius did not eat breakfast. Part B. S implies negation R, or we could say if statement S, then statement negation R. And we can fill in statement S for our antecedent is it is Saturday. Then the conclusion, statement negation R, would be Marius did eat breakfast. In words, S implies negation R would be if it is Saturday, then Marius did eat breakfast. Example 7. Given statements P, Q, R, and S as shown, represent the following using symbolic notation. Part A, we have the conditional, if it is Friday, then the cafeteria serves pizza. It is Friday is the antecedent, that is statement P from above, and that's written in front of the arrow. Then implies, and the direction of the arrow is pointing towards the consequent, the cafeteria serves pizza. The cafeteria serves pizza would be statement R. So our symbolic notation would be P, arrow, R. Part B. If it is not raining, then we ride bikes. The antecedent in front of the arrow is it is not raining. And that would need to be written as statement negation Q. Then we ride bikes for the consequent would be statement S. And that would be our symbolic notation. This table shows alternate ways to represent the conditional if P, then Q. If P, then Q, we're going to consider as the original conditional given. Here, the P is the antecedent and the Q is the consequent. And in all of these, P is the antecedent and Q is the consequent. These are just different ways of writing if P, then Q. The second one, P implies Q. Here, the implies indicates that P happens first, and the consequence of P is statement Q. The third one, P only if Q. And the fourth one, P is sufficient for Q. Here is sufficient means P is sufficient knowledge to imply that Q will happen. Notice that the top 4 listed, all in words, have the P antecedent listed first and the statement Q consequent listed second when written in words. So to state that again, these top 4 examples all have the antecedent written first in the word sentence. The next group, Q if P, and the bottom part of our list, Q if P, something to help remember that one is the if is still located next to the P. If P happens, then Q is the consequent. Q is necessary for P. Q is a consequence of P. A hint there would be that the sentence is actually stating that Q is the consequence. Q follows P. Follows is indicating that P happens first and then Q is the consequent. Q follows. Q whenever P is another way of saying that P happens first and then Q happens whenever P did. The bottom portion of the list, when written in word sentences, the consequent is listed first. So when written as a sentence, this group of 5 all have the consequent written first. Let's go ahead and take a look at an example of converting into an if-then form. Given the statements shown, we're going to convert the sentence into if-then form and then second write symbolic notation. Let's start out with our if blank then blank. Being Friday is sufficient to know the cafeteria serves pizza. Let's go back and look for sufficient. Here we find is sufficient for list the antecedent first in our sentence and the consequent after. So listed first is our sentence, it is Friday. So if it is Friday, then our consequent would be the cafeteria serves pizza. Now we can convert this into symbolic notation. If it is Friday is representing the antecedent, and that would be statement P. Then indicates our arrow. The cafeteria serves pizza. The consequent would be statement R. So our symbolic notation would be statement P, arrow R. Part B. We do not ride bikes if it is raining. Here we see if it is raining, and that goes with this bottom portion. After the if is the antecedent, okay? And here the consequent is listed first, and after the if, the antecedent is listed. I'm going to start again with if, then, and then fill in those blanks. If it is raining, then we do not ride bikes. Now we can convert it into symbolic notation. If it is raining is the antecedent, and that would be represented by statement Q. Then we do not ride bikes would be statement negation S. And there's our symbolic form. Part C. It is Friday whenever we ride bikes. Let's take a look for that word whenever. The whenever was indicating that statement, the antecedent is listed after the word whenever. So our antecedent is we ride bikes. So if we ride bikes, then it is Friday. Now we can convert this into symbolic notation with the antecedent we ride bikes, statement S, then indicates our arrow. It is Friday with statement P. And that would be our symbolic notation. A biconditional. The logic operation if and only if is called a biconditional. The symbol of the double-sided arrow is used to represent the connective if and only if in logic theory. The compound statement P if and only if Q can be represented using P with a double-sided arrow Q. Keep in mind that P with the double-sided arrow Q really means that P implies Q and also Q implies P. So your arrow is pointing in both directions. P is pointing towards Q, and Q is pointing towards P. To write this in symbolic notation, we could think of it as P arrow Q, and using our conjunction symbol, Q arrow P. Let's take a look at part A. Q with the double-sided arrow S would be Q if and only if S. Working similar to how we worked with our conditional, I'm going to put the if and only if in the middle with our blanks, and we can fill in those portions. Statement Q would be I was in trouble. If and only if, and then at the end of the sentence we have statement S, I stayed out past curfew. Part B, negation R with a double-sided arrow indicates if and only if, negation P. In the beginning, we have negation R, so instead of I did not clean my room, we want to change it to I did clean my room, or I clean my room. If and only if, and after that we're going to have negation P, which would be I did not cook dinner for my family. And that would be representing our biconditional using words. Example 10, we're going to take the sentence in words and write it using symbolic notation. Notice that we see the if and only if in the middle, and that represents our double-sided arrow for symbolic notation. Harold did not pass the test would be statement R. If and only if is represented using that double-sided arrow. He cheated on the test would be statement P. Part B. Harold passed the class if and only if he passed the test. Here's the if and only if indicating the double-sided arrow. In front of it, Harold passed the class would be statement Q. After the double-sided arrow, he passed the test would need to be statement negation R. And that ends example 10.